Okay, good morning. So we're up to Siman Shin Aleph, Halacha Chaf Aleph. What we're going to discuss today is certain clothes to go out with in terms of medical clothes, for example, bandages, plasters, and things like that. So it says Machaber in Sif Chaf Aleph, Ein Yoitzin B'Teva, you can't go out with some sort of box, a chest or something, for kupa on a basket, umachatzeles and a mat. Avol yoitzim besak v'yuriya v'chamila, but you can go out with a sack which is like very thick, coarse woven goat's hair, and uriya is like a thick sheet or something, and a chamila is a coarse coat. Pirish begodim gasim, thick coarse coats. Now, what is this all about? Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ayin Aleph, Kagoin. You want to wear this. Why are you want to go out with a box over you? It's pouring with rain, and therefore you want to put a box over your head or something like that. You can't do that. Because these things are not considered malbush, they're considered a masui, and therefore it's considered carrying it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, besak, nor can you go out wearing a sack. So you can't go out with those things, but you can go out with a sack, uriya v'chamila. So why is that okay? Says Mishnah Berurah, I am based because these things like woven goat's hair and coarse coats and thick sheets and things like that, the people, the royim, the farmers, the shepherds would go out with these things. When it rains, and since it's considered a malbush for them, and it's considered a malbush now. Once it's a malbush, you can wear it. Pirish begodim gasim. The Ramos translated as begodim gasim. Kain pirish harosh b'nadarim, and that is how the Rosh and Nadarim explains it. V'chein Rashi b'Shabbos samach beis. Pirish nami malbush sak. Mashma the sack mamishlei, but not a proper sack. For tzorchim b'yameinu sha'aroim nagu lilbesh sack gufa, they wear these things. Echadin, what is the halacha nowadays if shepherds wear these things? Gam l'divrei kosher k'tzas amayka omar brayse lo b'teva v'kupa. Why is the contrast that you can wear this but not a teva and a kupa? Yoisa hoyla lashmin and the besak mamishlei. He should have said more. He should have said that you can't wear a sack. V'gam b'shiltei giborim shal hamordocha hevi b'shem aderes v'u'arash but afilu sak muta v'tzorich iyun. Okay, now, so he makes a very interesting point in footnote number 58. So it comes out in this seif, we've said that you can't wear a teva, and a kupa, a basket, and a chest because that's not derech malbush, but you can wear sak v'yuriya v'chamina, these very thick goat's hair and coarse coats and things like that because the royim wear it. And therefore it has a din of a malbush. So he says, interestingly, in 58, you want to put a box on your head or a basket to protect you from the rain. Because it hasn't got a din of a malbush, you can't wear it even if it's to protect your body. Even though the Shulchan Aruch said previously, if it's to prevent distress, pain to your actual body, muteres isha likshar begelin idasa, that a woman is allowed to wear this sort of sanitary pad or something, afilu she'ein ze derech malbush, even though it's not considered an item of clothing. So what's the difference? So he says, bi hagonim listen karelis shekiven she likshar begelin idasa hu davish regilis hanoshim lasos. This is just the way that women operate. That's how they would. This is quite normal. Ucheshemoneh hadava tzah haguf nechshav hadava kavush, to prevent tzah haguf, any physical pain or distress, that's considered a malbush. Ulam lachasis aguf b'teva v'kuba, to put a box over your head or a basket like we're discussing in this eve. Kiven she'ein derech hanoshim lasis kain. This is not considered normal practice. Ein zeh nechshem malbush. This doesn't give the item a status of a malbush. Afim meneh b'zeh tzaraguf. Even though it may prevent tzaraguf, that doesn't make it into a malbush, and therefore is not considered. Therefore, you cannot wear this on Shabbos. He talks about in the next paragraph in 58. He talks about an umbrella. Now, umbrella is more of an issue of binyan and oil, and there's a big discussion about that and what exactly is the problem with the umbrella. But here he mentions it because also you take an umbrella to prevent sar haguf. So he also discusses it. To go out with an umbrella, the issue seems to be whether or not it's considered an oihel.
Or if it's open before.
Oh, so right. So, but still, we don't do it on Shabbos. But the question is, why not? If you open it before, what's the problem? So, so there are other problems. Number one, there could be a problem of hitzov achnasa. For who? For example, you might carry it in a place where there's no eruv. Prima godim. And the Prima Godim over there says, don't bring our seif as a support for the carrying an umbrella. That you're allowed to wear things which are preventing tsar haguf. The whole heta is when you actually wear it over your body. And therefore this becomes a derech malbush. Not if you're carrying the thing in your hands. With the kamiyah, some sort of amulet, you wear it in the way of like a necklace, or have you wear the amulet, but not when you're actually carrying it in your hand. So that's just the Prima Godim contrasting the case of the mitri, the umbrella, to our case. All right, we'll get to the umbrella, Mr. Hashem, in Shin Tesvav. Okay, now let's move on to Chaf Beis. Yotzim b'moich u'sefeig she'al hamaka. You're allowed to go out with some sort of material or a sponge or something on top of a wound, because they're medical purposes, it cures it. You need the bandage over it. And therefore it's got the status of a tachshit, which you're allowed to wear. So if you want to wear sort of the shell of garlic or of onion, or a bandage, or melugma, or some sort of compress, or a tia, like a dressing shell. Now, but you can't put it back on Shabbos. That's a sort of a refuah problem. And certainly you can't put it on in the first place on Shabbos. In other words, if it was already you're padded up before Shabbos, then you're allowed to go out with this bandage or with this dressing if it was already all applied before Shabbos. You can't put a string or a band al makkah on top of a makkah to kivin she'ena merapim have a masu, because these things are not considered medical, and therefore it's considered a masui, and therefore it's carrying. Avol be'egoid, with rags she'koirech alabatir, which you wrap around the bandage, shelo tipol me'olov, that the bandage won't fall off. Yochel leilech boy v'koishrei umatira, and you can sort of just tie it round it, and you can undo it as well if you need to. Okay, let's see the detail. But moichus feig. So the Mechaber says yotzim b'moichus feig. You can go out with some sort of material she'al hamaka. Hainu shenosnu mi'ba'odyom uchad perish lekame. I.e., you put the bandage on before Shabbos, and therefore you're allowed to walk out. Again, we're talking about a situation where there's no eruv, and therefore that's not considered carrying. Or be'isplanis. And isplanis, we said, is some sort of bandage. You apply some ointment on the bandage, and you apply that to the wound. But if it comes off, you can't put it back. Why? Because it's like putting on medication on Shabbos itself. Because it comes under the issa of refuah on Shabbos, of medication on Shabbos. Al hamaka v'uadin im yitz lichrich oisam al hamoich usfeig uritia gamkein osa. So too, if you want to put it on top of the bandage or the dressing, it's also osa. That you're allowed to sort of wrap it round the dressing. That's dafka some sort of like shmatzas material. That you'll just chuck it away when it comes off. And therefore it's not considered choshev, a bottle of gabaritia, in its bottle, relative to the ratia, and therefore it's not carrying. Masha'enkein b'chut mashicha, masha'enkein something which is more significant, a string or some sort of band, the chashivi, which is more choshev, in a bottle of gabi that would be a problem. It would be a gra kosev the ladas harambam eina also b'chut mashicha ki im keshekarche ala moich usfeig. It's only a problem when you actually wrap it around the dressing, not say by to mishum chashivi lo batli. Avol hamaka mamish, but on the actual makkah itself, afilu hayakar chut mashicha isha dov choshev mutalot says by the after in a merapah, because it's not really merapah itself. Mikam makah harimayil shalei yisoret hamaka. It's going to help that the bandage won't, the wound won't get knocked or scraped Va'alkein lo havim masu, and therefore hasn't got a din of a masui. Ve'hevi raya ledvarav miloshen hatusefta, or mashma minei shehu soiv v'kein lahalocha, v'chein mashu das hamakam achrenim, or kamoish echter lekam b'sif chof ches, v'mishta bura ein shom, v'kosher matir dahala be'eged ein bo mishum refuah. Now, it's a bit confusing all this, right? So what I've brought again is the Shabbos Home, a brilliant sefer and a brilliant series, and he basically summarizes this sif, and he talks about medical items, whether you can wear them or when sort of wearing medical items on Shabbos. So this is, let me just read you just a couple of paragraphs of what he says. Any item that is usually worn to promote healing or prevent injury is considered subordinate to the body and may be worn outdoors on Shabbos. So here's some examples. It is permitted to go outdoors on Shabbos while wearing a bandage over a wound. However, the type of bandage may be worn varies depending on whether medication is applied, as follows. So, a wound not covered with medication, right? So you've got a wound which is not treated with ointment, but is merely covered with a bandage to prevent scraping or infection. One should lechatchila use as a bandage an item of negligible value, which will be discarded after use. So, for example, a plaster, a band-aid, no problem. So, putting if you to walk out on Shabbos with a band-aid is no problem, because the bandage has little intrinsic value, and it's considered, subordinate toffel to the body, and therefore, there's no problem with walking out with that on Shabbos. Okay, but what about if you want to put a handkerchief around the wound? What about that? So if there's no band-aids available, then you can use a handkerchief. What's the chiluk? The handkerchief you want to keep. You'll wash it, you'll put it back in your drawer. So therefore, it's better to use something which has little intrinsic value, such as a plaster or a band-aid. But if there's nothing else available, then you can cover a wound with an article of value, such as a handkerchief. Now, what about a wound which is treated with medication? So if a wound is treated with medical ointment, it is permitted to cover it with an article of value, e.g. a handkerchief. In this case, the bandage promotes healing. Since it keeps the ointment on the wound, it is therefore considered subordinate to the body, even if it's a valuable article. So again, if you haven't got any, it's not covered with medication, you just want a bandage or a plaster over the wound, no problem. If in that situation, should use a handkerchief only if there's no bandage in place. When it comes to a wound which has been treated with medication, then you're allowed even to put the handkerchief over it, and the reason is because the bandage is promoting the healing of the wound, and therefore it's keeping the ointment on the wound, and therefore it's it's promoting the healing, and therefore it's considered toffel to the body, even if it's considered more valuable. Okay, now what about the last thing the Mishnah was talking about, securing a bandage. So this is what he writes. If a wound is covered with a gauze or similar bandage that needs to be secured, it is forbidden to use an article of value, e.g. a handkerchief, to secure it. In this case, the item used to secure the bandage must be deemed subordinate to the bandage, and a valuable article cannot be considered subordinate to it. However, one is permitted to secure the gauze bandage with a band-aid or medical tape or special bandage clips or with a safety pin. These are considered subordinate to the gauze bandage, even though they will not be discarded after the use, since their primary function is for fastening. Okay, and you can't obviously cut the tape on Shabbos. So you've got some sort of, you've got a wound which has been covered, and you want to wrap some material around it, and you want to put a safety pin on Shabbos, that would be okay. Slings, he said, it's permitted to wear a sling outdoors to support a painful arm, that's no problem. And casts and splints, it is permitted to go outdoors while wearing a plaster cast, a splint, or any similar bandage. However, it is forbidden to cover the cast with plastic, since the plastic serves only to prevent the cast from moisture and does not aid the body in any fashion. So going out generally with a cast or a splint is okay. All right, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should make us sure that we're all well, and we should have to.
What did you learn with the plaster? That if it falls off, you can't put it back?
Yeah, so it depends. So if there's ointment putting back on, then you've got a problem. Putting a plaster on a Shabbos would be, if you need to, would be okay.
Normally, I think if the plaster's been let's say if you before Shabbos you open it, you clear, let's say it's paper, then you're allowed to.
So then it depends. Sometimes it's better to do it in a way which is not going to be a kesher shel kayama. So to try and avoid it being more permanent. Yeah, we'll get to that. That's kosher matin in Toifa and all these things. Okay, say that.